Hello everyone, hope you've been enjoying Endfield as much as I have, and if you've been following my little playthrough that I did on Twitch a while ago, you'll know that I've raced pretty much to the end game, and I imagine most of you are now at this point, or at least getting close to it, so I decided to make like a little video with a bunch of tips that in my opinion should help future-proof your account, going forward with Endfield. So, first tip, and to be honest, it's kind of extremely late me even suggesting this, but characters. By now, I imagine you've gotten all the pools available for free, and now maybe you're deciding which banner to pull from. Obviously, we've just had Levitain just passed, and we've got Gilberta now, and Yvonne, but I don't really think they're worth pulling on. Not that I think that they're bad. Obviously, these are meant to be the best characters in their roles so far, but in my opinion, it's not worth it because they are competing against the base cast in what is arguably their most viable state that they will ever be in. So, the game, in my opinion, gave us a very strong physical core with Endmin and Chen. Both of them are very powerful and synergize really well with each other. And no matter what you got, other than maybe one character, whatever you got with your free 6-star or anything that you got with your pulls, you should still be able to make one strong team that can do everything in the game for you. If you pulled Ember, if you pulled Pog, if you pulled Li Fen, they can just slap together with Endmin and Chen. If you don't like Endmin or if you don't like Chen, slap them with Dapan, and that will make you a beats all Fizz team for the early game. If you pulled Lashtrite, you can use her to make her own ice team. If you rolled a lot of Ardelias, then I feel sorry for you. But they did recently give us a free 6-star selector. So anybody that you missed out of those lineups, you can now just grab them for free. But outside of these characters, you can also form a really strong lineup with just 5-star units. Sadly, I never pulled Aviwana, but I'm going to recommend her anyway, because if you ended up pulling, say, Arklight, if you got more Perlicas, and well, I assume you've gotten your Max Antals because he's a 4-star, they will make an incredibly strong arts team. If you ended up getting absolutely no synergies whatsoever, then my god, I feel even worse for you. But understanding what teams you've got lets you establish what gaps might appear later on in your progression, and that might impact your pulls, since quite a lot of other gachas will go down the route of making a boss immune to a certain element or weak to others. So there could be immunity to physical, maybe you can't apply vulnerabilities to them, but then they might be incredibly weak to arts, or maybe they're incredibly weak to a specific element. Understanding what you've got and where your gaps are. Obviously you can see I've got like no ice, I've got no fire, and nature doesn't exist, so we don't talk about nature. These are my gaps, and I might need to look into filling them potentially down the road if I was to pull the correct 5-star or maybe pull the correct 6-star. So instead of pulling on like the current banner characters, I would actually save and use this time to get up and running, because the gacha system itself very actively rewards pulling in mass. People might be tempted just to throw, say, the chartered HH permits and maybe all of their, or I don't even know what it's called, let's just call it premium currency for the sake of it, just to get pulls out of the way. And I really recommend you just not do that, because there's various like milestones baked in. You might know, you probably don't know. The very first one is obviously this, but this is bait. Do not take this bait. This is a free 10 pull. Sure, It is a free 10 pull, but it doesn't impact your pity, doesn't impact your sparks, and these are the two most important things to take into account in this gacha, especially sparks. The other little milestone that you get, buried, is it in here? I can't remember where it is again. I think it's in here. If you scroll all the way down, I've actually bothered to take the time to read this. There is a little milestone at 60 pulls, where if you do, yep, here it is here, the headhunting dossier. If you do a total of 60 pulls, you will be given a free permit for 10 pulls on the next banner. So they're doing this to incentivize you to keep pulling. It's obviously just a money grab tactic. You've sank 30, now you're more likely to sink 60, you know, same what it is. But in my opinion, you should only really do a pull if you've got, one, the free vouchers to spend because these expire, or if you have 120 to guarantee that you get your Sparks pull, because Sparks does not carry over. So as long as you play around this, you should be good to keep play the premium currency economy, I guess you could call it. That's my recommendation for the gachas. But when it comes to the characters themselves, we now have to look into actually skilling them. There's a lot of like no-brainer things when it comes to leveling and scaling your characters. Obviously you want to take your main DPS to max as well as their weapon. I wouldn't recommend doing that for your supports, since the investment isn't really all that worthwhile. You're not getting like a lot of damage back, and so far I don't think any of the content has demanded you bring your supports up. When it comes to abilities, you also want to bring these up to scratch. Obviously you want to bring your supports to 60 so you can get access to gold gear. I'll talk about gear later. But then you also have all of your bonuses to your skills, your traits, flat stat increases if you're playing with trust, manufacturing bonuses, which we'll get to later. But the main one I would suggest holding off on is these masteries for your combat skills, because these use Mark of Perseverances, and these are kind of like, I mean, if you've played Honkai Star Rail, these are like your tracks of destiny. They're a relatively rare resource. I've got a lot of them right now because they just front-loaded a lot to us with some of the events. But these only will come from events paying a relatively sub-premium currency, or you get from the Battle Pass. So there are not a lot of locations for you to pull these from, so I wouldn't recommend just dumping them into anybody, because these are 1.0 characters, these are going to get replaced. Save these for when you actually pull a banner character. Outside of leveling the characters and their skills, the second tip I want to bring up is learning about gear. So the end game offers you 2 new major systems for gearing, and it's important to learn because these play into the other aspects of the game as well. So you can't just dip your feet in it. You have to either do all the stuff, the prerequisites I guess you could call it, to properly sink yourself in and start to engage with these. So the very first one is essences. So essences act as this game's variation of relics. And to be honest, I think it's the fairest iteration of a relic system I've seen in a gacha so far. So what is an essence? In essence, haha, pun intended, the easiest way to compare these is to the gems you get in the Monster Hunter games. If you've not played the Monster Hunter games, you should. They're very good. But the system is as follows. Whenever you do one of these energy rifts, I think they're called, I can't remember their exact name, starts with A, you will be given random essences, and these have randomized stat boosts, which you can tailor, but I'll get to that in a second. And every single weapon in the game also has stats, but these are not random, these are fixed. So if I was to go into the little database system, pick a weapon, I'll just go back to my Sundering Steel because it's easiest. We can see that it has the agility boost medium, physical boost medium, and combative anthem of cinder. These are the 3 stats on Sundering Steel. And you can see that there is a maximum number of pips that we have unlocked, as well as how many pips we are actively using. So agility boost M has 3 total pips, 1 is being used, providing 16 agility. These essences that we farm will need to roll any of these stats to be equipped onto the weapon. Obviously, if you get all 3, even better. And as well as maxing out your weapon's potential in the same way that you do with your characters, you can suddenly turn these bonuses from 16, 4.4, 5, 7.5 to this. This would be a maxed out Sundering Steel. And essences are what you would use to get this far, as well as potential. And you can see the massive stat boosts you get from this. But these are all done with RNG. So I did say that you could then tailor your essences. So if I was just to quickly scoot over to this little energy rift right here, I can use these engraving permits which you buy from the stock vendors. And this allows me to select stats that my essences would roll. So to break it down, you can choose 1 secondary or 1 skill stat, and this will be guaranteed on any essence that drops. And then you can select up to 3 attribute stats, and anything that drops will include any of these 3. Obviously that means that one of your stats, being secondary or skill, depending on which one you didn't choose, will be completely random from the 8 in here. And this will define whether or not your essence is usable or not, or at least how good it is. This is your RNG, this is your relic. So if I was to go back to my little Sundering Steel that I've got right now, mine gives me 2 physical damage boosts and 1 combative, but I never rolled agility, it rolled intellect, so I'm not getting these 2 pips. So instead my weapon sits as following. This is probably going to be your biggest sanity sink. So you want to be making sure that this is where your sanity goes. Obviously there's a bit of leeway because you might not know what weapon you want to get. We don't know what a lot of them are. We only know what Levitane's, Gilberta's, and Yvonne's are. It doesn't mean future characters will have anything similar. It could be completely random. We don't know yet. But I still think that this is where most of your sanity should be going, unless you want to do a different tip that I'll recommend later down the line for pre-farming. But making sure that whenever you do these, you should be doing it with the engraving vouchers. So that's your maxing weapons. And conveniently, talking about maxing the weapons leads on nicely to part 2 of the gear tip. You will then get introduced to a system called artificing. And this is more or less the gear's equivalent to potential. You take 2 pieces of gear, or it could be a different piece of gear, provided it has a higher stat than the current gear piece that you're trying to upgrade. And the gimmick is that you will essentially merge these together using this thing called a artificing catalyst, and the stats will then increase. You can see the little pips there. It is just the exact same as maxing your potential. However, these catalysts, I don't really think they're very cheap. I mean, they look cheap. Oh, wait, that's the wrong one. I need to jump over here into stock redistribution. These boys. So you get a fixed amount of them at -99, and then obviously you're playing with the cheaper ones as stocks last. I'm pretty sure these refresh every week. So you're maybe looking at 60 per week, but those are your prices. They're not exactly the cheapest things in the world. I would recommend you hoard these until you know what you need to use them on. And one of the reasons I suggest hoarding them rather than just using them is because the gear that we have right now is all level 70, and it's using the 5-star gold. I might be completely on the copium, but I think that we might see gear increase later down the line to our own level cap, because the operator level cap is 90, and with 6 stars you use the sort of reddish glow. So I imagine there's going to be reddish armor as well, and I wager that that armor set will be tailored to something with a bit more, material cost that isn't just factory produced. So maybe you can only get so many of these resources by doing an end game bit of content, maybe a limited time per week. Some of the Hoyoverse ones obviously have the special upgrade material you can only get by killing one of the big end game bosses, and you can only do that 3 times a week. It might happen, it might not, but hoard the catalysts. If you feel like using them, go ahead. No, don't overlap. Don't overcap, essentially. If some bit of content comes out that's difficult, you might as well use it to beat the content. When you get introduced to the system, they'll also tell you that these catalysts are region specific. So when we eventually leave Wuling, it will no longer be utilizing Wuling catalysts. We'll instead be using our third area's catalyst. So this brings us to the next tip, which is economy. So you want to get these catalysts, you want to get these engraving vouchers as often as you possibly can, and making sure that you have a good economy in all of your regions is the best way to improve your future prospects. So you obviously have your stockbrokers. I think he's your #1 priority. Like, leveling him not only increases the amount of goods that you can buy, how much get refreshed every day, but it also will unlock the new goods that you'll get to play with, and that will give you your better chances of rolling something that's very cheap, where you can then go and sell to someone else for a huge markup. Second is your depot nodes. Since these are essentially just delivery missions, you go pick up a crate, take it from point A to point B, and these will get harder as you just level up the stations, because they'll add restrictions like don't teleport, don't take damage, and at the highest level, don't even jump. These don't really have a cost to do other than like the resources that they take from the factory, but to be honest, the factories that they take, you don't even notice. They could just take raw originum from you. These are just really good money, and if you want, you can even take other people's jobs if you want more money, and if you feel lazy, you can just tell someone else to do your job for you, and then you'll take it and you'll get the money for it regardless. The only thing I'd recommend when you're dealing with this is to set up your zipline routes, because they make such a substantial difference in how fast you do these, and just how much easier it makes things for you. Like, I'll show you an example. If I was to do power plateau, right, let's max this out. What is it going to take? It's just going to take a bunch of this packed Origio crust. I could even just give it explosives or just normal Origio crust. Doesn't even matter. They'll pay me a nice sum, and let's see. Here to here. Easy job. We take it. We go to the power plant. and you'll get to see the zip lines in action. And once we get to the end, I can actually mention the next part of the eco, which is your recycling stations. So you need these recycling stations in order to upgrade the Dijang. And I really recommend you do this mainly only in Valley 4, because the recycling stations in Wuling, they give the exact same recycling rewards as Valley 4. There's absolutely no difference. And in my opinion, you're just wasting your like Wuling credits money upgrading these stations, because by the time you get there, you've more or less already maxed out Dijang, or maybe close to it. And there you go, by the way, that's how easy it is. Set up the zip lines, it's an absolute like game changer. And conveniently enough, here's your recycling stations as well as the materials it gives you. I'd just only do this in Valley 4 rather than in Wuling, since it's the same. By the time you get there, you've already maxed it out. If you've got the money to burn, maybe bring it up to level 4. They might end up in future adding an upgrade material to it. That's exclusive to Wuling for Dijang, but until then, they have not. So that again ends for economy. Next up is optimization. Kinda goes hand in hand with economy, but this is more for your factories, and having a streamlined understanding of what your factories are doing, what they need to produce in each area, and what they need to produce for the future that you don't quite see yet. So, in my opinion, a lot of the stuff that you can make in this game is filler. Consumables are by far the worst example of this, or to be honest, best example, you could say. So, here's all of the list of consumables that are in the game. If you've been playing, you are already well aware that your buckflower and citron are like your two main ones. And there's 8 of these altogether. You've got the powder, capsule C, B, A, and then the exact same for citron. Only 2 of these are like worth their salt. Buck capsule A because it's sellable, and I suppose the pills are pretty decent. But the funniest thing is that they're all worthless, because as soon as you get to Wuling, the best healing item in the game becomes a powder that you can get from simply crushing a plant. And you can do that from your inventory without needing a single factory. And that's this stuff, the fluffed Jinkao powder. 20% max HP plus 1278, has the exact same restrictions, and all it is crushing a plant. If you wanted to be optimal and plan ahead, you see this, you know that all of these are going to be extremely useful, and having a big supply or building up a factory producing this stuff immediately is going to do you well in the long run, because these will eventually turn into buck capsules. Their own variation of buck capsules, I'll say, of all types. So having this supply, very good for being optimal. The only, again, saving grace for some of them is that some of these buck capsule in particular, batteries as well, are very sellable to outposts. And this is the other thing that you should optimize. Have your factories build the things that your outposts require in order to grow. Since selling to them, look at all the money they've got. I've been kind of slacking a bit, so they've got a crap ton of money. They still want to buy a buttload of buck capsule, and they will pay me money. That money becomes engraving vouchers. That money becomes artificing catalysts. And it becomes regional growth for further progression in the game, but in a different area, if you want to like push the story down. You also kind of want to have the exploration goods produced to a certain degree. So obviously for Valley 4 that was your explosives, but in Wuling you're not blowing up walls anymore. You're trying to clear blight by using the little robot sprays. So you want to have the bottled Shiranite to put into your drone in production. So that way you can guarantee that you're exploring. Again, a chain on the best healing item is good if you want to keep your characters alive, unless you want to go down a giga optimal route, which I don't even think is necessary at this point, and build things like... No, that's the res one. Which one is it? Is it you? Are you the combat one? Yeah. Combat stimulants, I guess you could call them. Damage dealt by 25% for all forms for a whopping 300 seconds. Why not produce some of these if you think you need it? Produce the best healing item because it might scale. Optimizing all of that stuff is very important, since money means economy, economy means progression, economy also means better gear, better essences, better characters. It is the core of the game. I would thoroughly recommend going down and setting up things. You could also do some little parts, little systems as well. Some things have come back to bite me, for example, like I've ran out of mining rigs, and it turns out I need ferrium parts, and I don't have ferrium because, you know, I've been optimizing by building the late game stuff. Or maybe I needed to build combat towers for, what is it again? What's it called? Intrusion detection system? The tower defense mechanic. Or God forbid you don't have the material to make a freaking zip line, because those zip lines, you want them, especially for traveling across Wuling. Wuling is a nightmare. There's a lot of invisible walls, and you can navigate around them with zip lines. So try to make sure that you have the parts on deck to be able to make these whenever you need them. And I suppose lastly, since we're talking about the money, whenever the next patch wants to come out, obviously this is going to be exclusively for Wuling, but applies to all other places as well, try to make sure that you've got a cap on your stock bills the moment that the next area releases. You might even want to hoard a bunch of elastic goods, because there's no limit to how many of these you can hold, no limit to how many you can sell. You could just keep stockpiling this up, buying cheap, and the moment a bit of content comes, sell high. And with all of those stocks, you can immediately upgrade the stockbrokers, node depots. You can buy whatever comes in the staple goods, since usually now and again they'll do basic pool permits. Maybe it's new gear. Make sure you have a stockpile. Okay, right. Last tip though for future proofing, unless I have a last minute stroke of genius and make it 6, that is pre-farming. And this sounds kind of obvious, but a lot of the new stuff when it comes out, say it's a new operator, will have a lot of sanity related bottlenecks. And you could start preparing for these today, essentially. Let's say you want to pull for Yvonne. She's not here for another like 2 weeks or something like that. Do you have all the necessary operator XPs in order to bring Yvonne up to, let's say, 80? Do you have enough proto discs to ensure that she's got her promotions? Do you have enough proto prisms to ensure that she's got her right skills? As well as for her weapon, and since she's already on the banner, you could technically already farm her essences as well. The idea of pre-farming is to ensure that the moment a character does come out, you already have all the means to max them out and get them effective as soon as possible. And in some cases, maybe some of these pre-farmings might not need to go to a new character, they might go to one of your older characters, We've not got the endgame event yet, but I'm pretty sure it's on its way. Where do I see the... I know it was here somewhere. I don't know if I've lost that again. There was a little, is it in the events? Is it this one? I think it's this one. Yeah, it is. It's this one. We'll be seeing this challenge event later on. Actually, it's like 2 days away. Might even be a day away. Limited time challenge. This is going to be difficulty based. If you've pre-farmed proto discs, if you've pre-farmed XP, if you've pre-farmed weapon XP, say you're in my position, say I don't have the damage, I can bring Pog up to 90. I could bring Ember up to 80, because I already have like a bunch of things pre-farmed already. So making sure that you've got stuff on hand gives you that flexibility to not only just immediately bring your character up to scratch, but will also allow you to tackle the current events without risking losing out on the premium currency that you could get from them. Since the premium currency is the most important thing that you can get in this game, you want to make sure that you clear all the content. Either way though, with that, that's my sort of 5 tips for future-proofing your Endfield run. With a better understanding of pooling, you should be able to get the character you want more easily when they roll around. With a better understanding of the gear system, you should be more flexible to any gear changes that appear in the recent future. With a strong economy at the back of you, you should be extremely prepared for the new areas that will appear in Wuling, as well as any other future areas, since you now know the bedrock of what you need to do when you get to a new area. With the correct optimization of your factories, you won't run into any bottlenecks that need you to backtrack, as well as it will immediately get you to set up your zipline routes and streamline getting to all the rare resources that are scattered across the map. That's still a bottleneck that even impacts me, because they only spawn every 3 days. Might be more than that. And then with good pre-farming, you can get the character you want day one. I could actually throw that into the pre-farming as well, because I don't even take my own advice. How many of you have been hitting all of these? Because I'm quite lazy. do as I say, not as I do. These are your pre-farming. You should be getting these every single day, or at least every single time that they max out. That's exactly what I mean. But yeah, since a lot of my tips involve stockpiling to make sure to just use them if you're getting to a point where things are overlapping, or if you've got an excess. Like if you're sitting there with 100 artificing crystals or catalysts, sorry, just use some of them. As long as you've got some for anything you might need immediately in the future. But if you're dealing with the content as you are without any issue, there's no need to spend them anytime soon. You might be able to use them on something later down the line, especially since they're going to be region specific. And we're only just starting Wuling. We're going to be here a while. And I'm willing to wager that that character we went on the date with, I can't remember her name, she's going to be very powerful. I can tell. There's probably like plenty of other things that I've like forgotten to mention, maybe stuff to do with like Dijang and optimizing your little buildings inside that. But to me, I think those are the best tips to give yourself the best start for Endfield and any future content that comes with it. So yeah, just let me know if any of these have helped you, or if there's anything major that I've completely forgotten about. Alright, see ya.